Hey, folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. My name is Mason. I'm the host here. And a quick apology before we get going. If you saw the most recent episode with Chris Fisher, I had to take it down because I heard that there was, when I went to edit it, I must have just not listened thoroughly enough, but there was a little bit of cursing in it. And usually not a huge deal, but I wanted to edit it out because I've heard from a lot of people who listen to this show with their families, with little kids, and I've heard, folks even playing it in their classrooms. So just always want to make sure this show's family friendly. So I just took it down. Nothing against Chris. I should have said something, but it's totally fine. In fact, sometimes I cuss too, and I have to go back and make sure I edit it out because I love to keep it conversational, and I like folks to just feel comfortable on. And it wasn't anything outrageous. It was enough that I needed to take it down anyway. If you ever hear anything in the show, like an audio, just editing was weird or something sounded off, I very well could have made a mistake. I've made plenty of them over the last few years. In fact, an episode recently, I accidentally overlaid two clips of audio together, and I heard from some of y'all, and I went in and fixed that too. So anything at all, always feel free to reach out. Mason at adventuresportspodcast.com is my email, or just reach out on social media. You can find me on Instagram, and I respond pretty quickly on there. So anything at all, if you ever hear anything just sounds weird, timing's weird, or just there's a mishap or cussing or anything like that, just reach out and we'll take care of it. So thanks for the listeners doing that. And thanks for Micah for catching that. Today's episode is Dierdre Wolenick. We've had Dierdre on twice now, and I've had a handful of conversations with her outside of the podcast. And you might not recognize her name, but she's the mother of Alex Honnold. Yes, the Alex Honnold that is like the world famous climber, free soloist, all that. And you're going to hear where Alex gets his drive. And what's so cool about Dierdre's story, this episode, by the way, is from 2019, is she is just so multi-talented. And I think it boils down to one big talent, which is grit and determination. But it has just shown itself and expressed itself in so many different ways over the years. She's done everything from started an orchestra to running a press, a printing press company, making, releasing books and whatnot. I don't know if that's a printing press or more just a printing company, whatever that's called. I'm blanking on the word, but you know what I'm saying. She's done a ton of different things. She speaks like 5 or 6 languages. It's unbelievable. She's taught other languages in other countries. And her story is so fascinating. She has a book about her life called The Sharp End of Life. And I highly recommend it. I have a copy at my house. I've read it. And she is so stinking fascinating. And on top of that, she got into climbing, got into running much later in life than you would think. But her son, as we'll hear, inspired some of that and got her kind of just to start running. And that has cascaded into all kinds of stuff. She's the oldest woman to ever climb El Capitan in Yosemite, that same peak or rock face that her son, Alex Honnold, is famous for free soloing. She's climbed that as well with ropes, of course. And at the age of 70, she climbed it. Unbelievable. That was a few years ago. We actually had an episode all about that. So, enough of me rambling. Let's go ahead and dive into the episode. All right. Well, welcome to the show. Today we have Dierdre Wolenick. Dierdre, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You have so many accolades and just an interesting life, and I'm going to read through that in the after the fact. I'll record another intro and put all that in there.
Okay.
But welcome to the show, and man, you're having a book coming out May 1st.
Right.
You have seen your son have a pretty incredible few years.
Oh yeah.
How has it been from your perspective?
It's been a whirlwind. It's been a real whirlwind. We've been leading up to this little by little for many years, and it's a whirlwind is a good word for it.
I'm sure that's an understatement, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I never in my wildest dreams ever imagined going to the Oscars, for one thing.
No, what was that like? Is it as glamorous as it seems to all of
It
us?
was, oh yes,
Okay.
and then some.
And then some. So in real life it's even better.
You can't even imagine, right?
What was the feeling for you when they announced Free Solo?
Well, I was already convinced that that was going to win. I kind of knew that in my mother's heart. Um, but it still was very emotional. The whole room exploded. The room was filled with Nat Geo people and Fox people, and the whole room exploded, and it was just a very emotional moment.
I know a lot of people were rooting for it.
Yeah,
It's so out of the norm for an event like that but so many people in that world just were so fascinated by the film.
hmm
I've seen it. Man, it's
including
something
the
else.
prince, including the prince. Did you see that? The prince, when they won the BAFTA in London,
Oh, that's
in
right. Yeah.
England. The prince really cornered them and chatted with them for a long time. He was a fan of Alex's, wanted to look at his hands and ask him all kinds of questions. Alex was piqued by that. He was kind of intrigued by that.
Wow. I mean, do you get tired of talking about them?
No, no.
No.
Does any mother get tired of talking about their son? I don't think
No,
so.
no good mother, I don't think.
Yeah, right. There you go.
It's just your perspective from everything is just fascinating. But you haven't sat there idle this whole time.
Nope.
You've been participating. You've been learning new skills. You've
Oh
been
yes.
doing honestly once in a lifetime things
Oh yeah.
yourself for the last quite a few years now.
For the last 10 years,
The
yeah.
last 10 years. So what kind of kicked that off for you?
Oh, done a lot, done a lot. Well, my birthday is in September, and that's peak season. No pun intended, but that's peak season in Yosemite. And Yosemite is only 3 hours from our house. And so every year since I started climbing, I have asked my son to lead me up something extraordinary for my birthday. And he always does. And it has always been extraordinary. I've done all the big major name peaks that everybody, kind of dreams about, in Yosemite, in the backcountry, and up in Tuolumne Meadows. It's just been, I, I, I tend to overuse that word extraordinary, but it is so extra, meaning out of the ordinary for most people that it's just, there are no words. But I'm thinking of them. I'm thinking.
Right, right. And now can you take us back to when you decided to do, have you always been the type of person that decided I want to learn new skills and do incredibly
Kind,
unique things, or is it
yeah,
developed?
kind of. No,
Okay.
kind of. I've always, even when I was little, I never bought into this. Keep your place. You're a girl. You're supposed to do this and that. I never bought into that, and I never understood people who did buy into those kinds of limits. And so, if I wanted to do something, I just learned enough to do it and went and did it. When I moved to Northern California, back in, well, when Alex was born, um, it was my opportunity to follow a lifelong dream. I'd always wanted. I've been a musician all my life, piano and clarinet and guitar, and I can basically play a lot of instruments. And I always wanted to conduct an orchestra. It's not your usual daydream, I always just I was fascinated by that ever since I was little. And I knew that, if it ever happened in my lifetime, it would have to be by invitation, to come guest conduct somebody's orchestra, because I don't have any training in that. I don't have no on paper training. But I trained myself all my life, and I watched and I listened and I learned. But so when I moved to West Sacramento and had Alex, and I had two children, and there was nothing much in West Sacramento, and it was not a city yet. It is a city now, but it's on the other side of the river from Sacramento, so everybody just went over the river for everything. And so I started an orchestra, and I had no training to do this. I just learned what I needed to know in books, from people. I asked everybody I knew who was in that domain, and got all kinds of helpful hints, and just did it. Jumped in both feet. Started the West Sacramento Community Orchestra. I organized it, I created it, and I conducted it for 4 years.
And what it was that? I mean, what's your attitude going into this? You want to, but then when it starts moving, do you get overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, now I got to make this happen, or does that kind of fuel you?
No, 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 I've never been overwhelmed by any of this stuff. If I decide I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, and that's it. No, I ran it for 4 years, and then it kind of took off on its own. Now they have. I don't run it anymore. I don't connect it anymore. I live a little too far to do that every week. It's because it's like a full-time job, basically.
I can imagine.
Yeah, no, I had to abandon that when I got my full-time college teaching job. Didn't have time.
Man, and now do you think now it's pretty clear Alex is kind of that same way now? You also have a daughter. Is she like that as
Yes,
well?
she is. She is. Both of my kids are adventurous. Yeah, it's very gratifying, really. It's so interesting when we all get together. The conversations are fascinating.
I mean, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, exactly,
In
exactly.
particular, you can talk about it in a bunch of different languages because you've taught 5 languages, so I assume you know at least 5. Do you know more than that?
Yeah, I know more than that. Not fluently, but I can get by. I can squeak by.
How the heck do you have time to learn 5 languages?
Well, I grew up in New York City after the war. I'm older than I look. And after the war, New York was filled with they called them refugees, immigrants from all over the European world and North African world and some Asian, not much Asian at that time. But and so I grew up. All of my friends were from different countries, and their parents spoke different languages, or their grandparents, whoever they lived with. And so I had to be sociable, so you had to say hello to everybody when I went there and stuff. And so that was normal,
Hmm.
using lots of languages. And my own family, all the old people spoke Polish. And so I grew up with a bilingual kind of environment. And then I went on to study the languages that interested me too. And the rest is history. So yeah, I've taught 5 different languages. I speak about 8 or 9, but very, very haltingly. I can get by, but I sound good. My claim to fame is I can sound good in all of them because I learned to mimic when I was really little, and so I'm good at that.
Wow. And now you obviously are pretty well in those languages to be able to teach them at the college level because you were a
Yeah, oh
professor
yeah.
for quite a while.
I've been a teacher for 44 years at various levels.
44 years, really.
I know, I know. That's a long time.
That is awesome. Now, do you keep up with? My wife's a teacher at the elementary school level, and
Oh goodness,
holy
that
cow, they put in
what a
some work.
demanding job that is. She's got, hats off to her. Boy, I could
Well,
never do that.
yeah, well, yeah. I don't think she wants to much longer, but it is tough. I hope she works her way up to a little less demanding level that
Yes,
can be a little
yes,
more engaging.
yes. Community college is wonderful because they're sort of adults, and you also have adults, gray-haired adults, in the classes as well, and so it's a wonderful mix of experience base and attitude. It's great. I love teaching college.
Now, what brought you out to California from New York City?
Um, well, I always wanted to see California when I was living in New York, and I came out here one summer when I was in my 20s and loved it. And the following year, I got a job and moved out, but not to here though, to Southern California. I lived in Southern Cal for 2.5, 3 years, something like that. And then we moved to Japan for 4 years.
And then you met who became your husband.
Yeah, I met Charlie in Southern California. Yeah, but he's from Northern California. He was working down there.
So what your book coming out on May 1st is the sharp end of life. But I know not every time of your life has been all that pleasant. What were some of those challenging points that
Yeah, well, that's why I called it. Are you a climber?
I've climbed? I'm more of a cyclist and
Oh,
backpacker.
okay. Oh, okay.
But I used to live in
Um.
Yosemite Valley, and I used to run into your son all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
right when he was doing the right before the free solo, I was there for the Dawn Wall with Tommy
Oh,
Caldwell,
really?
and we had him
Oh.
on the show a couple months ago to talk about that.
Oh, exciting times. All
Man,
kinds of exciting things
the
happening.
climbing
Yeah.
world, it's mainstream now, thanks to
Yeah, yeah,
Tommy and your
yeah.
son. I mean,
Exactly. Exactly. They've changed it. Yeah. That's why I called the book is called The Sharp End, The Sharp Ending, climbing is the harder end. You take the rope up and you're not protected until you do it yourself. And a lot of my life has sort of been like that. That's why I called it that.
And I figured that, someone like Alex just doesn't come from nothing at all. It comes from someone or something influencing him
Mm-hmm.
to kind of have that mindset and have that capacity. And I figured it was you, and guess I was right.
Yeah, probably.
So what was it like growing up, raising your kids in California? I know that marriage was tough at times, and
It was different. I had my daughter was born in Japan while we lived there,
okay.
and we lived there until she was 2. So she was trilingual, when she was a kid, but we reduced that to bilingual only when we moved back here to the land of monolingualism. This surprised me a lot when I moved to California, because in New York, all languages are equal and they're all over the place. Like when I go back and visit, I rarely ever use English. I talk with everybody, and they're from all over. And so I moved out to California. I figured it would be the same. And we live in the capital of California. It's like totally monolingual. So that's kind of surprised me. So
Yeah, and California of all places is kind of prides itself on being a little more inclusive, and if you're experiencing there, you're going to experience it anywhere else in the country.
right, right.
You didn't climb then, but how did Alex get into climbing?
Well, Alex was born climbing, and that's all he ever wanted to do since birth. He often talks about, I started climbing when I was 10. That's not accurate. He started climbing the day he was born. He could stand up the day he was born, which is totally off the wall. But if you know how babies grasp with their hands all the time, and if you let him hold on to your pinkies, he would stand up. He would just push himself up, and he couldn't stay standing, but his thighs were powerful and his hands were huge. And that's what everybody commented on when they saw the new baby. Oh, what big hands he had. So he's been climbing. That's all he ever wanted to do since the day he was born. He talks about, well, I didn't have many hobbies. He didn't have any hobbies. All he ever wanted to do was climb on anything, buildings, shelves, furniture, when he was little, whatever. All he ever wanted to do. So
Now, what did you and his father do to kind of cultivate and encourage that?
well, we didn't have to try to do anything. That's what he did all the time. I mean, we had to just try to protect against it,
Right.
as best we could, because we didn't know then who he was, what he was going to be. I had no idea that climbing was a sport, but that's all he ever wanted to do. So we just tried to protect as best we could.
And now he's going out and doing it without any rope. So
Right,
sure
right.
boy, you better put a helmet on or something.
Yeah.
So when he grows up and he starts getting more serious about it, I mean, was it clear that he had talent, or did it take a while?
It was always clear that he had. The very first day, when he was 5, I took him and his sister to a climbing gym because I was writing a book called Sacramento with Kids, and I had to go to this place to check it out to put it in the book or not, And it was the only climbing gym in the region back then. It was small, and so I just really hated the idea of taking my son there because I didn't know what a climbing gym was.
Right.
It wasn't on anybody's radar back then. But I knew my son, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I can't in all conscience take this boy to a place where it defied my imagination. So I prepared a list of questions really fast. I would be in and out, in and out. That we're not going to spend any time there. So I took the kids, and I gave my children, who were teeny tiny. Alex was very small and scrawny, and his sister was a little, she was 2 years older. So he was 5, she was 7, and so there were two young men ran this gym. So one of them took the kids, gave them body harnesses, and promised me that they'd be fine. And I'm thinking, yeah, sure. What do you know about it? And so I turned around to talk to the other one and get all my answers to my very quick list of questions. And all of a sudden, I realized that, when you walk into a gym, it's a barrage of noise. People are shouting, there's music, all kinds of things. All of a sudden, the gym went quiet, totally quiet. And I knew, in my heart of hearts, I knew had something to do with my son. I turned around, and there's Alex. He must have weighed about 35 pounds at that point. He was so tiny, and he was 40 feet off the floor on a wall, and everybody in the gym was watching him. And the guy who was interviewing, for the book, he just shook his head and said, "Wow, he's really good."
And you were like,
So
"Oh
yes,
boy,
yeah.
I'm in for
So
this for a
yeah,
while."
exactly. So I was glad there was no other gym around, and that was like 30 miles from my house, so we weren't going there. So
So you're saying he could
so
have been even better.
right, exactly. So that's why he says he started at 10. At 10, there was a gym closer that opened up, and he started going there. But that's how he started. He started with me and his sister at the
And why do
Rocknasium.
you think did you just never want to try it yourself as he was getting older and growing up? You just had other responsibilities going on. You
I
were a
was
single mom working.
too busy. Yeah,
Yeah, I can
I
imagine.
never had a moment to myself.
Mm.
I was teaching full time, more than full time. I was quarter overload of courses, and I was writing for magazine and writing for newspapers and taking care of two very busy kids, and I just never had a moment to myself. And so we tried, taking him to the gym alternately. And when Charlie took him to the gym, I was home doing all the stuff that needed to be done. But when I took him to the gym, Charlie didn't do any of the stuff that needed to be done. Just read or something. So I had to give that up. So Charlie took him all the time. But of course, I mean, for me, it was not an option. First, I didn't have time, and second, I was old and lumpy. I thought.
Yeah, I can't. I'm too old to try something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. And not old exactly, but out of shape, lumpy. Not for me. I'm a mom, but get real. I spend my days in front of a computer or in front of a classroom or in the kitchen. That's mom's life. So yeah, never even considered it until way later.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. I know on the show we don't always talk about gear, but good versus bad gear can make or break an adventure experience. And I find the best gear is the gear that I don't even think about on the adventure. And what I mean is that the gear doesn't get in the way. It's not uncomfortable, it's not low quality, and it also doesn't have tons of distracting bells and whistles. It's what I need and it's going to hold up. And that's why I'm a huge fan of Outdoor Vitals. They create ultralight performance gear the right way. It's built by outdoor enthusiasts for outdoor enthusiasts. It is absolutely not designed and made by people with suit and ties in a corporate office somewhere. I know the folks personally at Outdoor Vitals. I'm actually wearing one of their shirts right now. And what I've found as I get better and better and more experience in the outdoors is I'm willing to pay for quality because a lot of times you only pay for it once, because it lasts forever. And that's what I'm finding with Outdoor Vitals. I own around half a dozen pieces of gear from them, and I wear it out, and it is still holding up. And there's all these little things that they've thought through, like with their sleeping bag, there's a zipper right in the middle, and I find it so much more comfortable to zip my sleeping bag up right there. And there's all these tiny little improvements they've made without it being, useless distractions or just the latest thing that doesn't really actually help. So I know when I need a piece of gear and I don't want to do all the crazy research into what's best, I know that the folks at Outdoor Vitals have thought through it all. And if you want to check out some of their new innovations and the great gear they have, go to outdoorvitals.com. Again, that's outdoorvitals, VITALS.com. And tell them Mason at Adventure Sports Podcast sent you. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. And you got into running first.
Right.
How did you get into running?
Well, my daughter is kind of a mix of both kids. In fact, my daughter is a runner, and she's always been crazy about it and talking about this and that. This teacher ran a marathon. This other teacher did this. She was just excited by it as she was growing up, and became a runner herself. And I didn't know what that meant. Again, the kids went out and did their thing. I was in the kitchen. I was at my computer. I didn't know what all these things were.
Right.
And then, several years, many years down the road, my husband had just died. I had 5 houses to take care of. It's a crazy story. It really
Oh
is.
my gosh. So I guess you rented those out?
No, I got rid of. They were in Pennsylvania, my father's house, and I was running them. I was running it from here because there are no property managers in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. So, I mean, just that was a full-time job. And I was writing and I was teaching and I didn't have a moment to myself. So and I was the executor for my ex-husband. I had just divorced my husband, and the following month after the divorce was final, he dropped dead. And it was like an incredible blow to everybody. I mean, you can't even imagine. And there was nobody else to be executor of his estate but
Mm.
me. I mean, we had just gone through all the process of who owns what and where it is. And the kids were too young. His mother was too old and frail. So I was executor. So every day I taught all day, and I came home, fed everybody, Alex and me. At that point, my daughter was in Portland. She lives in Portland now. And then I would go to work on the estate, and I would do that until I fell into bed every day for a year and a half. Yeah, exactly. And so every night we had this big dog. We had you know what a Malamute is?
Oh, yes. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Alaskan sled dog. Beautiful, sleek dog, powerful, built for pulling. And so I every night when my eyes got too bleary to keep working on the estate or whatever else, I would walk the dog. And a dog that size doesn't walk; they trot and long legs, and And so I would jog alongside, and we'd both get some exercise. And I'd come home, and the first night, I'll never forget the first night. Not the very first night, but the first night I did this. I came back and I realized that, wow, we had gone a mile. I had run a mile. And to me, this was extraordinary, with the dog. And I told Alex, and Alex this is so telling of my son. His immediate take was that, oh, cool. If you can do a mile, you can do two.
You can do more. You can always do more.
You can always do more. Exactly. And I had never really thought about it that way. So I looked at the map. I said, oh, okay, maybe we'll do a mile and a half next time. And it just kind of built. And then I found out that, I could do a mile and a half. I could do two. And then I could do three. And I started leaving the dog home. And then I found out, you've heard of the Run to Feed the Hungry. There are road races all over the country. They help the food bank in whatever city, And so it's a very good cause, and it's at Thanksgiving. So I saw that in the newspaper. I said, "Oh, heck yeah, I'm going to try that." I had no idea what a road race was or what an organized race. I just ran alone with the dog at night. That was it. That was my training. And so I signed up. Thinking, oh, 6 miles, 6.2 miles, 10K? No way. But I kept training, and then Alex came back from a trip that the night before. He was in Spain. Yeah, Spain at a climbing competition. And he came back the night before. He says, yeah, so he signed me up. So I signed him up. And we both went, and it was an amazing experience. It changed my life. It was totally amazing experience. I had no clue that running was such a sport. I mean, I was totally out of it because all I did was my
Work.
estate, my teaching, work, nothing but work. That's all I did. And so I was totally out of touch. And I had no clue that there were that many people out there just running.
There's that
To
many
me, this
crazy
was like,
people out there.
yeah, exactly. I'm thinking, whoa. And they didn't look like me. They all had spandex on and costumes and beautiful running shoes. And I had my jeans and my sweatshirt and my Kmart sneakers.
But that's how you
And
started.
but that's how I
And you got
started.
out there.
I got out there,
And it was
and I
life
knew
changing.
I wasn't going to finish because it was 6 miles. Imagine. But Alex ran with me,
Oh
and he
man.
and he told me about Spain and his whole experience. And he ran around me in circles, and he ran backwards in front of me, and he ran, and he kept me company. And darn it, I finished.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. That changed my life.
And then from there, what did it grow to? Did something switch in you, or you
Well,
said your
yeah,
life has changed, and then you just
yes.
set goals higher and higher, and it sounds like your kids were a huge influence in all of that.
Totally. Yeah, we did it all together,
And
really.
you were 50. What did you say?
I was,
55.
yeah, I was 55 when I started running.
55.
Yeah, and I did my first marathon the following year, I think.
Because you started climbing a few years after that, and then within a few years of that,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
climbed the mecca of the rock climbing world, El
9 years
Cap.
later. Oh God, what an experience that was.
So how difficult is LCAP?
uh, it requires a lot of training. Well, it is very difficult, but I didn't climb the rock. Actually climbing El Cap with Alex, that was the first time I'd ever seen him gripped, gripped by what he's climbing.
Yeah.
You know what it means to be gripped,
Hmm.
white knuckle. Because there were three of us. I didn't climb the rock. I Jumar'd the whole thing. I
Okay.
climbed rope. Okay, so Alex would climb up, lead, and make an anchor my rope to climb my jugging rope, and I would get set on that rope, and the other person, Sam, would start cleaning what Alex had led. So Sam and I kind of went up at the same time, different routes, because Sam had to go exactly where Alex went and pull out all the gear. My rope was straight down,
Right. Right.
so it wasn't always straight down. I had to learn how to lower myself out sideways on that trip. I call it a trip because it really was a trip up the rock. And so it was a learning experience all day long for me, and terrifying and exciting and exhausting. Because most people who do that climb, we did a climb on on Halloween Day. We did a climb called Lurking Fear. How appropriate is that? Lurking Fear.
No kidding. Yeah. That's what all of them should be called.
Yeah, right. And most people who climb that take 4 or 5 days, and because it's 3,000 feet up. And we did it in up and down in 19 hours.
You had to
And
be
I,
tired.
I,
It's a lot of
oh, I
work.
was so exhausted. I didn't think I was going to finish the last two pitches. I really didn't see how it was going to happen.
It sounds like a theme for you. I can't do this. I can't do
Yeah,
this, man.
exactly. For the
But then you
last, I
get
don't know
it
how many
done.
years. Uh-huh.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, that is something else. That is, I mean, that's so awesome how you go from, just running with the
Yeah.
dog to you're on
Yeah.
the face
Yeah.
of El Cap, like, in not that long of time. I mean, in a time of life where people are just kind of set in their ways.
Exactly. People, yeah, that really irks me when, other teachers would say, "Dear, you shouldn't be doing that. You're 50 whatever years old."
Wow.
And my gut reaction, even when I was 5 years old, it was, so what? So what? So I'm 50. So next year I'll be 56. And so what? I'm going to get older anyway. If I want to try these, now is the time. Not getting any younger.
No, not every second. We're getting older as we talk. I mean,
Every
daggum,
second
it's
counts, right.
every single day. I'm telling you, and when you find somebody that's truly taking advantage of it, it's an appealing point of view, and it's something you want for yourself anytime you see it.
Exactly.
Because it's hard to hold on to 24/7, but you need those, like, you need to sip on inspiration, and I'm sure with you having your son around,
Yes,
you get a
yes.
big dose of it
Right.
all the time.
Both of my kids. You talked about cycling for yourself. My daughter is a cyclist, and she routinely goes on these 1,000-mile bike rides by herself.
Also, she tours.
She, I, I guess is
Yeah,
that what it's
that's what
called?
I do. Yep, yes, ma'am. That's called touring. Man, we'd love to talk to her too, because I'm sure
You probably,
she's got
yeah,
stories to tell.
yeah. Oh goodness, she biked from Portland to South Lake Tahoe a few years ago, and she just packs up her camping stuff on her bike and goes. She does all the homework about maps and where there are trails, bike trails and stuff, and she just goes and loves the camping part, and she's just an amazing adventurer. I'm in awe of both my kids.
You
In
should go with
fact,
her.
I would love to. I would love to.
What's so much fun about bike touring is the journey aspect. It's days,
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
a big rock wall, but you're covering so much ground and you're meeting people. There's like
Right,
and then
right.
you can try food in different places. It's just this whole, like, almost quest to it,
Right.
and
It's a real adventure.
it
Yeah.
is, and the downhills are fun. You know what I mean? You don't have to work.
Right. That'd be my favorite part.
Exactly. And so I'd love for you. You would love bike touring. Oh, because you can cover so much ground so quickly. It's so much fun. But that's awesome. So you have two adventurous kids now. I mean, did their father, did Alex's father instill that in him? I mean, I know that was a turning point for all of you, and you mentioned it was a shock.
Yeah. He was 55 when he died, but he was he was not a doer. He was an observer mostly. He loved to travel, but he just traveled and looked, took pictures and wrote postcards and stuff, but he didn't really do much, physical stuff. So no, they didn't get that from it. He was powerful. He was a big guy, and once in a while he would go on like a 40-mile bike ride. But he did these things in an unhealthful kind of way. And he knew he had a heart condition, but he'd do nothing for months and then go on a 40-mile bike ride. So he did a lot of things that taxed his heart, and that's what killed him eventually.
Man, so how is when was the turning point for you noticing Alex's ability? When was it like, oh my goodness,
Well,
this is larger than
yeah,
big. This
that's
is
it's kind
huge.
of it wasn't a one moment kind of thing,
It was
It was
gradual.
gradual dawning. You know, I we would get them. He was still living at home back then, and we'd get magazines. And I'd see him in an advertisement or something, a picture of him climbing, and I'd think, "Huh, he must be pretty good." And
Wow.
then I'd start seeing him on the covers of these magazines, and he must be really good. And then I heard about some of the free solos, like Bushido and the vertical wall that he did out in the desert.
Right,
Yeah,
man.
it's two
Oh,
it's
what?
2 words. 2 words. It's a
Yeah,
2 word name.
I've been looking at it all day. I'm doing research. I mean, I should know.
So between the two of
Moonlight
us,
something.
it's Moonlight Buttress.
That's right.
Moonlight Buttress.
Moonlight Buttress.
And when I saw that, I I still didn't really grasp what he was doing, and I'd never seen any of these places myself, so I didn't realize the scope, the grandiose scope of where he was, and what he was doing. And I kind of pushed it to the back. I was too busy, basically. I didn't have time. And he'd come home and tell me these stories about, we went to such and such place and we did this and that. I climbed this and I did this. And I didn't know the vocabulary.
Right.
So I didn't really understand what he was talking about. And he would define things for me, and then he'd leave for 6 months, and I was just too busy. I didn't have time to think about it.
It's probably
And
for
then
your
he'd
own
come
good
home.
you didn't know what he was doing.
That's exactly right. I think that was my mind protecting me, And then when he finally did Half Dome, remember Half Dome like
Oh
10
yeah.
years ago?
He free
When he did
soloed half
Half Dome,
dome.
that was, yeah. And then my mind kind of stood up and took notice, and
And did
it,
what?
but and
Panicked?
well, no. I had to years ago come to terms with the fact that he knows what he's doing. He's the only one who knows what he's doing, and it would be the height of hubris for me to chime in. I didn't know anything about it, and I had to teach myself to just trust his judgment,
Hmm.
which is a really hard thing for a parent to do.
I can only
But
imagine.
but I didn't know anything about what he was doing, and I knew that he knew that. If I, had started chiming in and saying, Alex, you shouldn't be doing this, that, then he just would have kept his distance. I wouldn't have been part of his life.
That's a tough
And I
balance.
wanted that is a very, very, very tough balance, and I had to master that if I wanted to be part of his life at all. And I did, and I did master it. And I did want to be part of his life.
And how has mastering that changed your life? I mean, it seems like you've
Well, yeah,
done a lot
it,
since.
if yes, that this is a very big question.
Yeah.
How much
Yeah.
time do we have? It was an uphill learning experience for me, and I had to learn to deal with. But he talks about this a lot in his interview. I had to learn to deal with fear for him, fear for me, fear for what might happen. As a parent of young children, your main job is to imagine all the dangers that bad things that can happen and protect against them. You know, you put the bumpers on the edges of the tables, and you lock the drawers so the kids can't get into them. Things like that. Well, I had to give all that up. I had to abandon that way of thinking and just go for him and for me. And so yeah, it's been a real heady experience. A real heady
And I'm
experience.
sure without it, you'd be a very different person today.
Oh, totally. I would still be that same very secure, very safe teacher, writer, and I would not know half of what I know now.
Right. And has it been all good? Is there some of that you might miss as far as I don't know, is there anything about that security that you do miss or you just kind of full force into this new lifestyle?
No, Absolutely not. No. It I mean, I still have that, I still write, and I could still teach if I wanted to. I still have all that past life stuff, but I have so much more now. Oh
Mm,
goodness, it's totally different life, and I'm
wow.
so glad we moved this way, incredible experiences.
I can only, I mean, I'm so curious because my own mother is, my adventures are nothing as dangerous as this. And my mother, I think she couldn't sleep some nights knowing where I was doing what I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I can't even imagine her getting over, like not getting over that, but working through that because it still, it still grips her a lot. And for you, well, I mean, yours is so visual. You see that rock and you say, he went up there with nothing. You
I
climbed it
know,
yourself. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
what
I
a
have
trip.
trouble, yeah, I have trouble believing that I climbed that. But I mean, we're especially in this country, we're so trained to go for the security.
We are.
Everything has to be safe,
I feel like
you
it's
know?
advertised to us constantly, you
Oh,
know?
right, exactly, exactly. And most people buy into that, and I don't understand why.
Do you think there's any balance to it? Because I'll be honest, like after I spend about 10 minutes on an insurance company's website, I start getting a little panicky, like, oh, I might need this insurance. I might need this. But then I think, no, I don't. I don't need this right now. But they're
Exactly.
so good at
But if
getting
you're
you to buy
pounded,
in.
right, exactly. They're so good at it. Exactly. And even it, I had that in spades because my parents went through the depression, and
Oh,
my father was in World War II, and they were totally all about security. That was it. That was the main goal in life, was to, and I can understand that. I mean, life is very
mm-hmm.
insecure. Their parents all came from extreme poverty in Poland. I mean, I I I get it. I understand it philosophically, but there are limits to that, you know. You just have to find that fine line. And most people don't even search for that line. Most people just buy into it entirely. And that's so sad because they miss so much. They miss so much
I know it. That's what we talk about on this show is, man, you cannot live your whole life preparing for
for your
retirement when
death.
you can't
Right,
do
for
anything
your
for
death.
your death. Exactly, for your
Right, right.
death. I'm so happy you've experienced this at this stage in life. And
I know. Me
what
too.
do the people around you think?
They think I'm crazy. They think I'm crazy. That was basically the reaction at the college. And I'd say, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going climbing up on the Sierra. Oh, Deirdre, you're crazy. You, you're going to get hurt. That's everybody's big fear, is you're going to get hurt.
And you might.
And you might go going across the street. You might get killed by a bus.
Exactly.
Yes, you might get hurt. And no, you might not. And you might have the experience of a lifetime. But most people just, you know, yeah, I never understood that. I never will.
Let's take a quick message break and hear from the folks that help make this show possible. If your dad is anything like mine, he is notoriously difficult to buy gifts for. And your father or father figures in your life might be the same. If you're struggling with what to gift your dad for Father's Day, give him the gift of a fun, powerful, and easy way to get outside and explore with his own electric e-bike. I have electric e-bike. It's the cargo version. It is awesome. I can honestly run to the store, get groceries, go get some parts, or any house project, which I do a lot of. There's always that one little piece that I'm missing, and instead of getting in the truck, driving to the town, there's a small parking lot. It's hard to get in and out of. I can just zip over there in my e-bike, and it's also a heck of a lot more fun. And every trip is almost like this little adventure. Electric e-bikes offer a wide range of customizable and adjustable options as well. So if you know what your dad's into, whether it be cargo or taking kids or grandkids for a ride, all that's a possibility with what you can add to the bike. Or even, an extra battery for a longer range. There's all sorts of stuff. So this year, skip the played out Father's Day gift. He doesn't need another mug or another tie or another, paperweight. Give the gift of adventure with electric e-bikes. Visit electricebikes.com. LEC TRICE bikes.com. This episode is brought to us by Oris Watches. You know what piece of equipment on any adventure that I'm honestly surprised by how much I use is my watch. And I'm wearing a watch right now. I always have a watch on. And I believe that you should check out Oris Watches. Oris is a 119-year-old family-owned independent watch brand based out of Hallstein, Switzerland. The brand has been certified climate and carbon neutral since 2021, and every year releases a sustainability report. Oris only makes mechanical watches like the new Pro Pilot X Caliber 400 and the new Pro Pilot Altimeter featuring a 3D printed carbon case. If you're a fan of mechanical watches like I am, there's nothing in the game that's better than Oris, and you can discover the full Oris collection at a retailer near you or at oris.ch. So if you want that one piece of equipment in your life to be functional, to be useful, to be beautiful, artistic, check out Oris Watches. Oris, go your own way. That is plenty of that for now. Let's get back into the episode. With the successful free solo of El Cap, how much did you have any sort of warning or did you know about that when it was happening, or did you keep it pretty secret?
No, he has never told me about any of his free solos beforehand.
And that is strategic.
That is, yes, strategic. Good for his mindset, and so good for mine.
Even better for yours.
Even better for mine. Yeah, exactly. Because he needs his mind clear when he's doing these things, and it wouldn't be if he knew that mom was home worrying and thinking, I wish he wouldn't do this.
Because I honestly, I'm not a parent yet. I will be in about 2 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I imagine no matter how much work you do, you can't completely get over, he's fine for him to do that. You've still...
No, it's not fine. Right, exactly.
You still want to take him and keep him safe.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that way about him, about my kids, about myself, but there are limits to that. You have to...
I'd say before all this, what was your hope for your children as they grew up? What did you want for them? And what do you imagine Alex doing now if he wasn't doing this?
Now, you mean after the free solo, or
if he wasn't
if
climbing
he weren't
at all?
a climber? If he weren't a climber,
say living in the van was just 3-4 year thing, and he moved on.
Yeah. He would probably have gone back to Berkeley and finished his degree as an engineer, and would have been bored to tears, and would not have understood why he felt so frustrated. He's so lucky to have found his bliss, gone for it, and just settled into it for life. I mean, so few people ever have that experience, that opportunity. I mean, I hate to call it an opportunity. We all have the opportunity, but we all turn our backs on it. Most people, so he had the courage to just go for it. And it was a combination of things. His father had just died. He had my van. He had a little money from the insurance. So he had the opportunity, and he had the go for itness, the drive.
It's a aligning of the stars in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now an Oscar star.
Right, exactly. So he probably would have been an engineer. He probably would have, never understood why he always felt so frustrated. And we always encouraged our kids to do whatever they wanted to do in life, of course. But of course, we were all teachers. Both their parents were teachers. My mother was a teacher. Charlie's parents were teachers, and it goes. it's in the genes, as it were. So Stacia became a teacher also, and she had to give it up because she got so disgusted with teaching to the test. And then when there's after that, there's another test, and after that there's another test. And she loved teaching. And she's so good at it. She loved molding those young minds and exposing them to new experiences and new ideas, but she wasn't allowed to do that. She had to teach to the test. So she doesn't do that anymore. But so whatever, I don't know where they would have gone, but she probably would have been doing the same thing she's doing. And Alex, who knows?
So are you happy with the direction he's taken.
Oh yeah, oh, yeah. He's followed his bliss, and I mean, how many people do you know who can't wait to go to work in the morning because they love it so much?
Yeah, less than a handful.
Yeah, exactly. And Alex, both of my kids are lucky enough to be like that.
Wow, yeah, that's I probably know 2 to 3 people, and you got in the 2 kids you
And
have.
I've got two of
You
them.
got 2 of them. Yeah, there's 2 more people I know now that
Yeah,
are
yeah.
doing it. But so your life. I mean, from starting an orchestra from scratch to teaching tons of different languages to climbing one of the biggest rock face in the world. Can you even begin to express to us what's next for you, or do you just have no clue at this point?
No, I have a fair clue. I have begun to sample international climbing. You know, I've been going to other places to climb, and I love that. I really love that, and I really would love to expand that a lot. I've climbed in Greece, and I've climbed in France, and I've climbed in Mexico, and Canada, various places in the U.S. And every place is totally different, and it's a totally different experience. And I just love it. You know, it challenges you in different ways, and I want to expand my lead climbing. You know, I lead climb, but very babyish stuff. You know, just because I'm a mom and my mind works overtime and stops me from just going for it. I think that will probably always be the case to a certain point. I mean, I started old and I had kids, and to a certain extent, I will not be able to get rid of that. But I'd like to try it out on different countries, different places. There's so many places I want to go climb that you know my list is enormous, and so I, I don't lack for things to do. But there's always also my career. I mean, I've been a writer all my life as well as a teacher, and I have this book coming out in May. You know, Sharp End of Life. I have a
Hmm.
French textbook coming out this summer, and writing the two of those at the same time for like 2 or 3 years was a real challenge.
Takes you back to them days when you were doing all the estate stuff and
Yeah, exactly,
busy as can
exactly.
be.
It was like that. Um, so I got them both done. So I have a French textbook coming out, my second edition of my French textbook coming out
Wow.
this year as well. And I just found out we're signing soon a contract for to publish my book, my memoir, The Sharp End, in France. That's coming out in 2020 in France.
Well, you'll have to
And
go over there and do some climbing and
yes, yes,
do a book tour.
exactly. That was my thought. That was my first reaction. And then we're talking also with publishers in Italy and in Poland right now.
All right. Well, another good climbing destination. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
sounds like I know what
exactly.
you're going to be doing for a while now.
Yeah, as
What,
soon as
what
my foot heals. Yeah, as soon as my foot heals.
exactly? Yeah. And so, what do you think what do you think's next for your son? I mean, it's hard to top that. Do you think it's
I don't like to speculate on that. He needs a lot of time now to come down, you know, from where he's been for 2 years, 3 years. It's been a totally invasive process. I mean, it's taken over his life 100%. So he needs to get his life back first. Um, and he and Sani are leaving on vacation tomorrow. I think they're going to excuse me, they're going to Portugal to just climb and go to the beach for 2 weeks. And that's what they need. So I'm not going to speculate beyond that. He'll probably work a lot with his foundation, and I hope, and that his foundation is such a legacy, and I'm so proud of him for doing that. And my book is going to help support it as well. You know, proceeds from my book will some of the proceeds will go to the Honnold Foundation, and so he has that. He can always do that for the rest of his life. I mean, that could be a full-time job, but he'll
absolutely?
he'll he'll no doubt climb for the rest of his life.
Oh,
But
for sure,
you
for
know what
sure.
kind of climbing, I'm sure will change over the years. And he's always talked about grandkids, you know, so that's going to happen
Is
one of
that a
these
hope for you?
days. Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, it would be great, you know, if it happens. I never, I'm not one of those people who long to be a grandmother, but but if it happens, it'd be wonderful. It'd be magical. So, and he's always talked about that. So, first step, of course, is your own kids. So probably change his climbing somewhat, like it did for Tommy.
I tell you what, though, Tommy's still doing unreal things with your
I
son
know,
up
I
in the
know.
part, and it's interesting. We talked about that with him a lot. How has that changed? And
Hmm.
um, that'd be interesting. And yeah, I don't think people realize, that between these huge events like free soloing, El Cap, Half Dome, and some of the bigger, well-known things, it is quite a few years in between. It takes time to,
Yeah.
to, to authentically grow an idea like that, and then to pursue it is
Yes.
a whole nother
Yes.
set of years.
Right.
And so you can't really force that level of creativity and that level of daunting task you have to take on. And that's really fascinating. And your book's coming out soon. You're going to be busy with that. You're going to be um, climbing all
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
world. Very excited for you. So, what advice would you share with someone? Would you share with the person you were when you were working on that estate, when you were teaching and running around like crazy before you were running? What would you tell yourself back then?
That's kind you really need to pick another person, because the only no I say that because the only reason I wasn't out doing stuff was that I was overworked.
Mm.
I didn't have the time.
And there was nothing
Um,
you could do about that.
Too many obligations, and there was nothing I could do about it. Exactly. So it would to talk to my younger self would be preaching to the choir.
Mm.
I knew who I was, but couldn't do it. But so pick somebody else.
Okay. So you didn't. You knew you wanted to do things that were
Right.
out of the
Yeah, I've
box.
always wanted that. I mean, I've done all kinds of jobs in my life. I was an international tour guide for several years and
Wow.
loved that. I loved it. I got to use my languages and meet people from all over the world. And I worked at JFK Airport for a while, and that was fascinating.
Wow.
And so I've done all kinds of things, and I've always enjoyed branching out, trying new stuff.
Mm.
But life often keeps you from it. I understand that. I get it. People who say, "Oh, I can't do XYZ because I have to, do ABC." And that's true. There's a lot of have tos in life. You know.
So I guess your advice would be when you get the chance, go for it. Or
Exactly.
like
Exactly.
that. I know you can't right now, and I understand. But when 5, 6 years when this clears up, you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
hesitate.
If you think it's a good idea now, while you're overwhelmed, write it down. Journal about it. The power of journals. I can't stress that enough. That's what kept me sane while I was going through all that craziness for so many years. So journal about it and keep it alive in your journal. And then when the time opens up, it'll be there.
Because it
Yeah.
seems like you're at that point in life where people say, "No, those hopes that I wrote down years ago, I can't do them now. I'm getting
Yeah, right.
older."
I'm too old. I'm too old. I'm too infirm. Keep your body in good shape and you can do whatever you want.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to getting into this more. Hear your story and just to learn as much as I can from you. I love a life that's taken lots of unexpected turns and a life that's done a lot of
Yes.
interesting types of things.
Yeah,
You're not
for
one
sure.
dimensional by any means, and so
No.
it's awesome to see. Also, becoming a parent, I'm super scared that I won't be able to do anything ever again. So
No, not true. Not true.
I know it, and it's so helpful for me to hear from
Kid,
people
and
like you.
don't forget that kids are travelers. Kids are born travelers. Wherever you want to go, you can take the kids anywhere. T- uh, this used to scare me too about other people.
Hmm.
Kids, people. I took my kids to France when they were almost 4 and almost 6. Just me and the two kids, and
Wow,
we stayed 8 weeks,
wow.
and and everybody to a person tried to talk me out of it. And but kids are traveling through life every day. They have no habits yet when they're born. They have no habits. If you get them in the habit of traveling, they travel. You get them in the habit of sitting at home, that's what's natural to them. So, whatever you want to do, just bring them up that way. You know what I mean? Life doesn't have to end. Yeah, when you have kids, people think, oh, I have kids, I have to settle down. Only if you want to.
We talk to a lot of people that live in RVs full time on this show, and they
Yeah,
say the kids
yeah.
the kids surprise them how easily they accept the lifestyle.
exactly.
They
The
don't have a
kids are
point of reference yet.
exactly kids don't have a normal yet. Kids, you ever heard of? There's a book back in the '60s. I think it was the '60s about teaching, and it's called the way it's supposed to be. All kids think that what they are experiencing is the way it's supposed to be, you know? And that
That's
makes
right.
total sense. If you're one, you don't know how things are supposed to be. They're supposed to be the way they are, period. And, it's only from the adult perspective there it says, yeah,
You
yeah.
assume. I assumed up until a point, probably till I became an adult, that everyone had the same childhood I did. Everyone had the
No,
same
no,
experience,
not at
and
all.
and ain't that the truth?
Not at all.
Well, this is getting me excited. I'm pretty
Oh, good.
nervous,
Oh, good.
looking forward to it, but now I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, I can do this.
You can do it. You got it aced.
Well, well, perfect. I won't keep any more of your time. I really appreciate
That's
you
okay.
being on.
Thank you very much.
Well, wonderful. Well, have a great day, and I'll let you know when this comes out.
Good talking
All
to
right,
you.
see ya.
Okay, great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.